Greetings, you lovely, lovely people. It is me, the Bee, from Super Marcy's Super Network, and I come to you yet again with yet another, yes, another movie review. Now, with Martin Scorsese's latest film Silence peeking around the corner with Spider-Man, Kylo Ren and Brian fucking Mills, I decided what better time to talk about yet another one of my favourite Marty films. Scorsese has continuously, proved himself to be one of the finest directors out there. Not only is he a director's director, but he's an actor's director. He is a visionary director. He's basically the whole entire package. And so, yes, the film I'm going to be talking about actually is a remake of an original film which was based on a book. And that is Cape Fear, made in 1991. Now, let me just start this review by stating this. I loved the original Cape Fear. It too is one of my favourite thrillers, just like this one, and I feel they should not be compared. They were made in completely different time frames, they had completely different actors and talent in front of and behind the camera. And also, you have to keep into consideration that in the 1960s, the themes that are prevalent in, or rather that are more explored in Scorsese's film, could not be more exploited in the original. Like, for example, you could not say rape, you could not say sexual assault, and you could not show these things take place. There was only the implication as well as suggestion, and sometimes the aftermath. So, the original Cape Fear didn't necessarily have that sort of benefit. Meanwhile, Martin Scorsese did. You know, time had gone on, the taboos have fallen, and Scorsese sort of took it upon himself to tell his own version of the story without impeding on J. Lee Thompson's version. So in saying that, this is not going to be a compare and contrast piece. I am just going to be talking about the film in question. And by the way, yes, I fully do intend on reviewing the original Cape Fear because, as I said, it is definitely one of my favourite movies. So without further ado, let's get going. So Cape Fear stars Robert De Niro, Nick Nolte, Jessica Lange, Juliette Lewis, and in two very surprising roles, Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum, the stars of the original film. And although the movie still has very much the same plot with the same characters, as per typical Marty style, it's never that simple. The character of Max Cady has to be one of the most reprehensible cinematic villains I have ever seen, be it played by Robert Mitchum or De Niro. But in De Niro's case, he is far more a physically prevalent threat than Mitchum was. Mitchum had a sly, serpentine quality about him, but De Niro is, he is a beast. He is a bear. He is basically a force of nature in the purest possible word. He's tattooed, he's buff, he's a bibliophile, he is like very book smart by the time he is released from prison. And what I really do love about this film is the fact that the character of Nick Nolte, he's supposed to be the good guy. He is supposed to be the loving father of Juliette Lewis and the loving husband of Jessica Lange. But therein lies some sort of difficulty with him. He is kind of on the verge of cheating on his wife with the character played by Illeana Douglas, Laurie. And it doesn't take that final step, but you can certainly see it. You can see that Sam, he has good intentions, ultimately, but he is a deeply flawed individual. And isn't that exactly what you would see in a Martin Scorsese film? Even the heroes have their baggage. So when he finds himself coming into conflict with the character of Max Cady, the man he sent to jail 14 years earlier for the conviction of rape and murder, just to see this man, or rather have this man, come back into his life and completely changed. You know, he knew Max Cady when he was illiterate and kind of dumb and just like completely mentally unhinged, that he really could not function. So when Cady comes back and he's very learned and he's like very intelligent. And another great thing about how Cady has managed to remodel himself in jail is he has become very familiar with the law system. Therefore, when he starts to harass the Bowdens, he does it in a very articulate way. He doesn't directly impose himself on them, and in doing so, he does not actually technically break the law, and that of course really does that really does frustrate Nick Nolte's character. Most of the time, this entire movie is a battle of wits. It's a battle of wits between two men. One is physically and mentally strong. The other one is kind of the average. Sam is not necessarily a weak character, but in comparison to Katie, is like David versus Goliath. You know, that sort of thing. A very, very demonic Goliath. Which also makes me want to discuss the other main characters in this film, namely Juliette Lewis and Jessica Lange. Well, we both know Jessica Lange is a fantastic actress, and once again she proves herself here. Her character of Lee Bowden, the character of Lee in the original film, played by Polly Bergen under a different name, you know, she was very nice and sweet. Oh, hello honey, how you doing? But she had a quiet strength to her. But Jessica Lange's Lee, she is far more fiery. She is certainly the Southern Belle sort of thing. She is the badass Southern Belle mama bear when push comes to shove. But even she has her issues. When it comes to her understanding that her husband could potentially cheat on her, you know, she does not take it lightly. She does not sit down and accept it. Like, when she finds out, she physically starts to beat on Nolte. It's quite the scene, actually. And with Juliette Lewis as as Nolte and Lange's daughter, Danny, she's, as again, Juliette Lewis, she is one of the finest actresses of the generation at the moment, and her take on Danielle is very fascinating. She is not the sort of, you know, loose, good time girl that, you know, one may expect. But by the same token, she's kind of looking for a way to rebel. She loves her mother and her father, most times, but she feels herself like very sort of constrained by her lifestyle. Her father is a lawyer, her mother is an artist. She isn't given much room to fully express herself because they're not really paying attention to her. And finally, when she comes into contact with Katie during his mission of ruinous revenge, he is the first person that she can completely talk to, that she can completely open up to. And two of my favourite scenes involve them. One is when he first calls her on her home phone, under the pretense of being her new teacher at her high school, and next when they physically meet. During the phone conversation, you know, she's very, you know, shy and coy, but she isn't playing up the Lolita sort of thing. Like, her natural naivete sort of like seeps through, but there's no sort of ulterior motive. You know, just beforehand, she had a fight with her parents, and like her parents are, you know, screaming at each other, and she tries to get them to shut up, but they won't listen to her. So she's stormed off to her room. She's feeling emotional, and during this conversation, like, Katie starts to speak to her about some various books, namely I forgot what. Oh God, what was it? The Tropic of Capricorn, which is very much known to be very sexually explicit. And you would expect that Katie would somehow start to, you know, indulge these more deviant sexual desires with her. But surprisingly, he gets to involve her into an intellectual discussion, and Danny responds to that. So the next day, when they meet at the high school, in the theatre, no less, on the stage, it is such a well done scene, because when she sees Max for the first time, it's when we see him through her eyes in the first time. He is sitting in the set of kind of like a rainforest. Well, not a rainforest, but an enchanted forest, I should say, next to a house. And it's kind of like the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood. He's smoking a cigarette, and he sort of like leans out the darkness to look at her. And, you know, once again, she's very shy and everything. But as the sequence goes on, and their conversation starts to become deeper, and she finds herself being charmed and cajoled by Max, it's simultaneously disturbing, but it's also kind of erotic as well. There is like no sort of pornography taking place, nothing prurient. Is it? I don't know. I'm trying to pronounce my words, but I can't. But it's not supposed to be, you know, it's not over the top, is basically what I'm trying to say. There's nothing upfrontly exploitive about it. But the sequence ends when Cady has his claws locked firmly into Danny. Now, prior to seeing this sequence, there is another scene of which Max Cady sexually assaults the character of Laurie, played by Illeana Douglas. That is one of the most brutal scenes in the film, but surprisingly, you are spared the worst of it. Yes, you see her cheek being bitten by Cady, and it's just so horrendous to look at and to hear and everything. But with that set up initially, you're expecting something similar to happen to the character of Danielle in the theatre, but it doesn't. It is completely based on consent. And that is one of the most disturbing moments in the film. Like, she has actively allowed him to come into her life and charm her and put some very subtle moves on her. It's an incredible scene, beautifully directed and just fantastically acted. It's great. So what else? Well, another really interesting feature of this version of Cape Fear is this. Do you remember how I said earlier how the what differs from the original and this one is the fact that, you know, the characters are quite different in terms of who they are? Well, with the character of Gregory Peck, like, ultimately at the end, Mitchum tries to goad him into killing him after everything he's done, after the threats on his family and physical violence and everything. He wants Sam to kill him, but he doesn't, because he believes that he is better than Cady. But in the remake, while Sam does not directly kill Cady, by this point, Cady has left an indelible mark on the Bowdens. He has found a way to simultaneously ruin it, ruin their lives, like each and every one of them, especially the character of Danielle. Danielle is perhaps the most innocent character in this film, and somehow Cady was able to ruin her. So at the end of the film, like, Cady is dragged down in a houseboat during, like, this tremendous typhoon on the riverfront. And it's quite a dramatic scene. Like, the entire, like, you know, final 20 minutes of this film are especially tense. So Cady's being, you know, dragged down, and in a sense, like, Bowden could have helped him. He could have, like, salvaged his soul or something, but he doesn't. And as I mentioned before, it wasn't a direct account of murder, but, you know, it's by this point there was some sort of, you know, massive damage being done to his family, to his family and to him. So in a sense, Cady won. So yes, there is certainly a lot of things that differ from the original film, but when you get down to it, there is such a wonderful sense of subtlety about this film. And while this version of Cape Fear is substantially more bloody as the original, it still works on the concept of terror. There is a difference between, like, the reaction of revulsion and one of fear. I know. And that's what Cape Fear does. It sort of, like, gets into your psychology a lot more. It doesn't necessarily rely on knee-jerk instinct. When a violent event happens, it gets you, but it's all about the context. There is so much build-up, leading up to it and afterwards. Like, this film never ever lets you go. There is a consistent sense of dread and doubt and uncertainty. And Scorsese, to his credit, this is one of his less, physically violent films. There is still violence, and, like, as I said, the last, 20 or so minutes in this film are completely intense, and, some of it does involve some blood, but he doesn't rely on sensationalism to tell this story. This is very much a human tale. Man versus man, human versus human, beast versus beast. Yeah, this is certainly one of my favourite of Scorsese's films, that's for damn sure. It just pretty much ticks all the boxes to what a good, efficient, contemporary thriller should do. It should keep you on the edge of your seat, it should make you care about the characters, it should make you see the motivations, even from somebody as completely morally reprehensible as Max Cady, and that's what Cape Fear does in spades. It's a fantastic film, and if you have not yet seen it, I highly recommend you do. It may not necessarily be Scorsese's career best, but it is no slouch at all. So yes, I give Cape Fear a 4 out of 5, a solid 4 out of 5. It's adequately tense, so well acted, and just impeccably directed. There's not a lot wrong with this movie, is basically what I'm trying to say. So thank you once again for listening to me ramble, as per usual, and yeah, please take care of yourselves. Goodbye for now.